Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am Kris. This just says Albert Göring, even though it's G-O, is it H-R-I-N-G? Oh, they got an E. So anyways, this is the brother of Hermann Göring. But they've got an E down here. They don't know what they're doing. They don't know how to spell his name. I'm joking. All right. Before we get started, click there, subscribe to the channel, helps me out. There's a thanks button. You click on that, donate to the channel. So the reason why I'm doing this one is I heard a little clip about Albert Göring, and his brother Hermann was a Nazi. Albert was a Nazi as well. I don't know if you know about him, but I've found out a little bit, and I decided I had to do a story about him. I'm not going to discuss more about it. I want it to be a surprise to you as it was to me if you don't know anything about him. But the title of this is History Deserves to be Remembered. They're focusing on this man for a reason. Yeah. It was difficult to be more of a Nazi than, is it Reich Marshal Hermann Göring? Perhaps that's what makes it so surprising his younger brother Albert was so different. That's all I'm going to say. It's an amazing little thing that I heard.
It is sometimes surprising how different two siblings raised by the same parents can be. A 2010 edition of National Public Radio noted that on tests of personality, things like how extroverted you are or how conscientious, that siblings are practically like strangers. And that's true. You might have two brothers, for example. One might be more athletic, the other more intellectual. One might be outgoing and extroverted, the other one might be shy and introverted. One might be a notorious Nazi and one of the worst villains in history, and the other might use his brother's name to rescue people from Nazi terror. The story of Albert Göring deserves to be remembered.
Albert Göring was born on March 9th, 1895. He was the last of 5 children, born to Heinrich Ernst Göring and his second wife, Franziska Tiefenbrunn. Ernst was the first governor-general of German Southwest Africa and a consul general to Haiti. Ernst struggled with alcoholism, was frequently absent, but the family was well taken care of thanks to the children's godfather, Jewish doctor Hermann Eppenstein, largely at his castles in Marterndorf and Waldenstein, Austria. Rumors have persisted that Albert was actually the result of a long-running affair between Franziska and Eppenstein. However, it seems unlikely, as Franziska was in Haiti until mid-1894. As a youth, Albert was quiet compared to the more confident and gregarious Hermann. In his jail cell in Nuremberg, Hermann described his brother. He was always the antithesis of myself. He was not politically or militarily interested. I was. He was quiet, reclusive. I like crowds and company. He was melancholic and pessimistic, and I am an optimist. During the First World War, Hermann became a flying ace, and was eventually given command of the squadron once commanded by the infamous Red Baron in July 1918. Albert also served, but as a communication engineer. His military records were destroyed by Allied bombs, but his job would have been to implement, protect, and repair communication wires and equipment, vital to the war effort. He was injured several times and shot in the stomach in 1918. The end of the war saw the brothers' paths diverge greatly. Hermann turned to politics, raged at the new government, and was an early supporter of Adolf Hitler. Albert went to school, studying engineering in Munich. He married his first wife in 1921. Over his life, Albert would marry 4 times and was known as a bon vivant and a womanizer. He divorced his first wife in 1923, only to marry his second only 2 months later. During this time, political differences meant that Hermann and Albert didn't speak. We never spoke to each other because of Albert's attitude towards the party, Hermann explained. In the 1920s, Albert worked as an engineer with 2 infamous German companies, IG Farben, which supplied Zyklon B to German death camps, and Junkers, which produced military equipment, including the famous Stuka dive bomber. But in the 1920s, IG was better known for making paint and dye, and Junkers' primarily business was manufacturing boilers and heating elements. In 1928, Albert left Germany for Vienna, spent much of his life in the triangle between Vienna, Budapest, and Prague. He fitted in very well there, Edna Göring, Albert's niece and the only daughter of Hermann, said. He was elegant, charming, bright and amusing. Albert's anti-Nazi views were well known. He told a friend in Austria that I have a brother in Germany who's getting involved with that bastard Hitler, and he is going to come to a bad end if he continues that way. Among his best friends in Vienna was Albert Basset.
That is kind of a key. He's going to get involved with that bastard there. That's kind of a key thing to remember. Sorry, my guy who mows the yard was supposed to show up. Today is Tuesday. Tuesday the 10th. He was supposed to be here about 10 days ago. Yeah, he's supposed to be here June 1st. So that's awesome.
Viennese businessman, and Oskar Pilzer, owner of the largest film company in Austria. Both were Jewish. Albert worked for Pilzer and in the film industry throughout the 1930s. In 1935, Albert became a naturalized Austrian citizen in protest of the National Socialists' rise to power in Germany. One of the first things that Albert did to help people struggling under the Nazi regime was at his brother's request. Herman's wife was friend with Henry Porten, one of Germany's first film stars, who was married to a Jewish doctor. Unable to find work under German racial laws, Albert gave her a job in his production studio, which provided her family with financial security. Albert voted no in the sham March referendum that approved of the political union between Austria and Germany. The union brought greater anti-Semitism, including a display where old Jewish ladies were forced to scrub the streets on their knees. According to Ben Basset, when Albert came upon one of these displays, he grabbed up one of the women's brushes and began scrubbing himself. When the SS grabbed him and asked him for his papers, when he showed them the papers, that was the end of that scene. Without a doubt, such a display would have been dangerous, but his last name protected him from reprisal. Even then, he was arrested.
So the thing that I heard was they were yelling at these women, these Jewish women, and telling them to like scrub the sidewalk or whatever it was. And he just saw it, walked up, grabbed a brush, asked for a brush from the women, and then got down and started scrubbing it. And the soldiers there were like, "What are you doing?" You know? And he's like, I'm scrubbing. So that's when they wanted to see his papers. Found out who he was, his last name, and then pushed the crowd away because they were not about to allow him to get hurt because of who his brother was. So they immediately told the crowd to disperse, and they told him, you know, you don't have to do that. And he was like, well, you know, as long as they're here, I'm doing it. And he stayed there and scrubbed with them. And what are the soldiers going to say? They were absolutely not about to do anything.
When he found a crowd of SA thugs ridiculing a 75-year-old Jewish woman with a sign around her neck that said, "I am a Jewish sow." Albert fought his way through the crowd, liberated her, and hit the SA men, who immediately arrested him. The authorities released him, but told him such a thing must not happen again. Albert didn't seem to listen and would be arrested and released repeatedly. Both Albert and the Ben Bassets soon retreated to friendlier territory, moving to Bucharest, Romania. But safety in Romania was brief as the anti-Semitic dictator Ion Antonescu overthrew the government. The Ben Bassets were forced to flee again. Albert purportedly procured the necessary visas and foreign currency. Albert himself met them in Venice to make sure that we got there all right, according to Jacques Ben Basset. The family got stuck in Switzerland, but even then Albert helped them by funneling money for the assistance of Jews to Switzerland. As the situation grew more dangerous for Jews and others in Austria, Albert's office became a headquarters for escape. Albert's friend Oskar Pilzer was taken from his home, and Albert used all influence to get him released. "This I owe to Albert Göring," Oskar's son said. "Our family owes to Albert Göring." Albert escorted Pilzer to the Italian border, gave him money, and enabled the Pilzers to eventually reach the United States, although Oskar himself died in Paris. He also rescued his personal physician, Max Wolf, his family, and his brothers, who reached New York safely. He saved numerous other Jewish doctors, with one despairing that all possibilities to obtain the necessary papers to flee proved to be exhausted. Albert took us under his care. He secured us exit permits and secured their bank accounts for transfer to Zurich. Albert was also involved in helping several famous names. In 1938, Archduke Joseph Ferdinand IV, the last Grand Duke of Tuscany and a Habsburg, was taken to Dachau. Herman, wishing to show off his power, offered each member of his family a wish when they gathered that year. And both Albert and elder sister Olga asked for the Grand Duke's freedom. Hermann was very embarrassed, Albert recalled, but the next day the imprisoned Habsburger was free. His health was ruined by his stay at the camp, and he died in Vienna in 1942. Albert was also involved in helping Franz Lehár, an Austrian writer who wrote Hitler's favorite operetta. Lehár was married to Sophie Paschkitz, a Jew, and was told to divorce her or be classified as non-Aryan. Albert complained to his brother, who in turn convinced Goebbels to make her an honorary Aryan. Albert stayed in Italy briefly in 1938, where he became friends with a Jewish doctor, who he gave ample funds to utilize for the assistance of Jews and other refugees from Nazi tyranny. He required no receipt nor knowledge of whom was helped. Albert protected the doctor from the Gestapo after Germany seized the country in 1943. Albert also aided Major Frank Short, a British businessman in Vienna. In 1939, Albert helped Short and his Jewish wife escape to Cairo, took over Short's business interests. Albert gave the company back in 1945 and even made a profit. In 1939, Albert was hired by Skoda Works, a Czech arms manufacturer. The company had just been absorbed into Hermann's Reichswerk Hermann Göring, which gave Hermann economic control over all kinds of businesses all over Europe. Albert didn't get the job from his brother, however, but at the request of the company's directors. The Nazis planned on dissolving the company entirely, but as exports director to the Balkan states, Albert could protect Czech jobs and prevent a German takeover. According to Albert, his job involved only peacetime goods such as locomotives, cranes, and machine tools. Albert helped keep tens of thousands of Czechs employed by Skoda throughout the war and helped some escape when anti-Nazi activities were discovered. According to Czech management, he refused to use the Nazi salute or keep the required picture of Hitler in his office and frequently denounced the party in meetings. Sources claim that Albert secretly financially supported families of Czechs arrested by Nazis. He aided and abetted numerous leaders in the Czech resistance. He rescued arrested Czechs accused of treason and found them work with Skoda, quashed arrest warrants. Other sources report that Albert never bothered about the resistance activities of Skoda. He looked to the other side. This included passive resistance like making dud ammunition, but also reporting information to allies. Jan Moravec, an important Czech resistance fighter, was a good friend of Albert's. Moravec's most daring act was Operation Crossbow, when reported on a secret V-1 and V-2 missile plant. Albert helped Jan avoid arrest and moved him to Bucharest in 1941. Albert revealed rumors to another Czech resistance member who sent information to London. The spy said that Albert was a good barometer of the situation. The spy relates that Albert revealed the German plan to attack France in 1940. He also knowingly assisted a Soviet spy, passing information that Germany planned on breaking the Molotov-Ribbentrop Pact 4 months before Operation Barbarossa.
This guy is just working behind the scenes. And the thing is, I wondered, how is he getting all this information? Is it his brother telling him all this? Like, how are you learning all of this? And you're just so easily working against, the system, which he does not agree with. Hey, I don't blame him. But wouldn't you feel like if your brother's telling you all this, eventually something has to give where like everything that we all know keeps getting leaked? Who is leaking this? And then everyone's looking around at each other and it has to eventually figure out, it's Albert. You know what I'm saying?
Albert likely also secured several people's release by signing Göring on the paper bearing the family crest.
Yeah, I heard about this one as well. They thought that he'd signed his brother's name.
Concentration camp commanders could hardly ignore an order that may have come from Hermann himself. During the war, he sent his second wife, sick with cancer, to Switzerland before divorcing her and marrying a Czech beauty queen, Mila Klazarova, with whom he had his only child, Elizabeth. His second wife died alone in Switzerland. While Göring had the protection of his older brother, he was far from safe. The Gestapo and SS considered Albert a villain, accusing his office of being a real intervention center for poor Czechs. He was who people called if they had trouble with the German authorities. German authorities red-marked him for these activities, and a file of his activities grew in the SS offices. Later in the war, Albert is said to have brought in trucks to a concentration camp. Claiming he needed workers, he loaded up the trucks, drove into the woods, and let the prisoners out. These activities finally caught up with him. In 1944, he was forced to flee for his own life. He denounced Manfred von Killinger, the Reichskonsul to Romania, as a murderer. Killinger contacted Karl Frank, an SS officer, who demanded Albert's arrest. Frank considered Albert, at the very least, a defeatist of the worst kind, and that his freedom of movement is politically dangerous. Albert got word that the SS had orders to shoot him. Romania was even then falling to the Soviets, and Albert's life was in serious danger. He fled Bucharest for Prague, where Herman was able to retrieve his brother. The Gestapo didn't give up, however, reporting a new set of accusations from Albert's secretary. Herman successfully got his brother out of trouble, but told him that he could do no more. His reputation and power was fading as the Luftwaffe failed to hold back the Allies, and Albert was instructed to go to Salzburg with his wife, where he remained until he surrendered to the Americans on May 9th, 1945. Albert's name was a serious albatross around his neck. He was interrogated by Americans at Nuremberg, where investigators were skeptical at best of his stories of anti-Nazi activity. While there, he made a list of 34 names, all people he had helped escape the Nazis. He remained in Allied custody for over a year before he was interrogated again by Major Victor Parker. Parker had changed his name from Patchkis, and Franz Lehr's wife was his aunt. Parker.
One of the people that he helped was the relative, the aunt or the uncle of this person. So they saw it. Well, let me make sure that that's what he's going to say.
Recommended Göring's release, only to be handed over to the Czechs to be tried for crimes against humanity.
So, yeah, he made a list, and it just happened to be of all the people, the person asking him the questions. He made a list, gave it to him. That guy's, see, they said it was his uncle, but on this, it made it sound like it was his aunt. Regardless. He looks at it, contacts the uncle, finds out the uncle or the aunt is kind of like, yeah, he completely saved us. I mean, everyone knew who he was. So then the person dug into the other 33 names on this list, and they were all like, yeah, no, he saved us. He got us out. He gave us money. He gave us food. He did this. He did that. So the person then was just like, yeah, he needs to be released. No one believed it because of who his brother was. No one believed. Why would he be the good one when the other brother's so high ranking in the German, Nazi regime?
But there, friends from Skoda came to his defense, and he was finally released.
Yeah. Hermann Göring died by his own hand, taking poison rather than face execution, having been convicted of war crimes. In 1946, the International Military Tribunal wrote of him, "His guilt is unique in its extremity. The record discloses no excuses for this man." But his brother Albert offers evidence that such evil is not something that you are born with. It is something you choose.
Yes.
Owing to his brother's crimes, Albert had difficulty securing work after the war. His name was simply associated with too much evil.
Yep.
His wife finally left him after one of his many sexual indiscretions and took his daughter with her to Peru. He found work where he could. He eventually married his housekeeper so that she could receive his pension. He passed away on December 20th, 1966, at the age of 71, from pancreatic cancer. Albert Göring died without having received public recognition for his anti-Nazi works, which were largely unknown until recently. The list of 34 names of people that he had saved from the Nazis that he gave to the Allies in his defense became the subject of research by author Will Hastings Burke, whose 2009 book 34, among others, helped to bring Albert's story to the public. Burke wrote, "In my journey, I have come across doctors and movie makers, statesmen and scientists, musicians and businessmen, royals and professors, all of whom can link their very breath back to the heroism of Albert Göring." I hope you enjoyed this episode of The History Guy.
Yeah, when I heard that, I was like, okay, so we already know what the other brother did. So I was figuring, well, he's got to be a monster, right? Because the video I listened to was about, it was a Simon Whistler video about like the 5 most prolific serial killers. And I remember him saying, we're going to end the video on a high note. And then he starts talking about Albert. And of course, I'm working, not even paying attention, but I'm thinking on a high note, oh, Albert Göring. Oh, great. How many people did he kill? His brother killed a lot. How many did he kill? And he's just going through it. And I remember stopping what I was doing and just like looking up at the shelf where my phone was, like, What am I listening to right now? This is a guy who should be praised. He should be talked about more. I mean, he did what he could considering the power that he had without putting himself on the line to be killed. Yeah. All right, well, I found it interesting. I hope you did. I hope you learned a little something, because I certainly did. And, people like that should definitely be acknowledged. So until next time, have a good day, have a good night.